emulation sampling like simplified suites. Still, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Play Expo 2024, make some noise! Oh good, glad you're keeping your energy up. What a day of guests we've had today, and we're going to finish it in fine style. We've got a very special and much anticipated panel here with the return of some very familiar and very friendly faces. But you're going to meet some new people from Blackpool, the Filed College, and I definitely said filed correct there, didn't I? Yes! Who are going to be conducting this panel, which is all about breaking into the games industry. So this should be fantastic. So put your hands together for John and Brenda Romero and Blackpool, the Filed College.
Hello everyone. So, I think we'll just go through a little bit of an introduction of actually who's on the stage, let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to work in through a bit of a short-ish presentation. For anyone who knows me or what I teach, short presentations for me are about 3.5 hours long. So, I'm going to do my best to keep this one nice and short for everybody. So let's just start ourselves off introducing the panel. John, do you want to introduce yourself first? I've put legendary game developer.
I'm a legendary game developer, apparently. I've made a lot of games, and I started programming in 1979, so you can probably figure out how long I've been working on games.
Brilliant. That's just, I don't even know what to say. Wonderful. Thanks, John and Brenda.
Hi. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I'm trying. There we are.
There we go.
Hi, I'm just learning how to use a mic apparently. I am an award-winning trailblazer in game development. I'm just reading what's on the slide. Yeah, I'm a game designer. I've been a game designer since I was 5 years old. None of those games are good, or probably even exist. They were all analog games. But been in the industry since I was 15.
Wonderful, thank you. And to my right we have Lorna Parry.
Hello. I graduated from Blackpool College 5.5 years ago now, and I started as an intern at Rare, which is an Xbox game studio, and there I am a game engine programmer and deployment pipeline.
Wonderful, thank you. And then, it's me. So I'm Chris Willits. I'm the curriculum manager for HE in the Blackpool School of Computing within digital and creative innovation at Blackpool College. It does make for a long signature, I'll give you that. Okay, so without further ado, let's move on. So we'll start off with just what the games industry looks like. And what this presentation is for, really, is for people to understand what is available in the games industry, but also how do you get there? Where do you start and how can we move towards that point? There are folks in here that are very, very young. There are folks in here that are less young. And again, you can start at any time. It's not about necessarily starting when you're an egg and working your way through. We can start at any time. So just to start us off in terms of the games industry, there are lots of different roles and opportunities available for you and others in here. Stuff in design, stuff in programming, narratology, there's stuff even in social media and community management, all of which are important to the development of games the way that we see them today. And again, there are so many more different areas. We've got big companies, little companies, indie companies, 1,000 different ones. Again, if you were to work at a smaller company, you might do dual roles, multiple roles in some ways. And what I wanted to sort of just ask generally, again, because I'm the odd one out by a mile here, because I teach for a living, whereas these folks all do games dev for a living, so I wanted to hear what they had to say about what their industry looks like, what sort of roles are out there, what do we expect people to be sort of training up for the future of video games. So if we can start with John, what sort of other roles are out there that I've maybe not mentioned or that we perhaps need to be talking about today?
Well, within some of the biggest areas like programming and art and design, there's a lot of specialization within every single one of those areas. So it's not like, oh, I have to be a 3D artist doing modeling, because that's just one of the jobs. There's 3D animation. There's actually, we hire animators for cinematics specifically. We hire animators specifically for like characters. We hire animators for creatures. They're all different. And some people are just like, I really care about like making really weird looking monsters. So you can become a concept artist. That doesn't mean that you're going to be drawing 2D stuff. Like today, tons of concept places do everything in 3D and they use Unreal 5. So like you would contact a place and give them a bunch of reference art from movies or other games or whatever, and just say, I want something that looks kind of like this, but just you describe all your changes, and then they make a scene in Unreal 5 based off of what you described in all your references, and then you just tweak it back and forth with them, and you can just say, can you make it like nighttime? It's like, it's done like that because it's all 3D. So concept art is really cool nowadays. It's not like, oh, I have to be a Disney artist. You can just be a really great ideas and learn how to model and then put stuff together. Even our creature artist is full 3D. So they can just pose it, they can rotate it, they can do whatever. So it makes concepting stuff much faster and way easier. You don't have to redo 2D stuff all the time. And that's just one thing. Like there's so many jobs in programming, the specialization in programming. Build engineer is one of them, and you have to learn a lot of stuff on that's totally different than game development to do the build pipeline. And that, like, if you don't have a build pipeline, you're not gonna have a game. You have to have a build pipeline to actually take all the work that your team has done and turn it into something you can all test, and other people can test on all the platforms that you're building for. So those build engineers are critical to getting the game out to anyone that's going to run it. And even within that job, there's a lot of different roles. Like DevOps is one role that people take. That's basically you're in a command line, and you're in Linux or you're in Mac OS, and you are basically or you're in Buddy or something, and you're like executing shell commands into a server, and you're spawning up new servers, or you're running VMs all over the place, or Docker containers. It's a whole nother world, but you have to have that to even just deploy a game. And that's just one of the many. Like when you're talking about AI, there's all kinds of AI programming. There's graphics programming, lots of specialization there. So anything that you're thinking of, even on a team that you're building that has all these different people on it, you don't just mix and match programmers. It's not just that programming, we're all using the same language, but some people do a certain thing way better than other people because they've invested years learning it. Those specialists are what you need to make that part of your game great. And that's why there's so many roles, because there's so many things that are in a game that are unique. So pretty much there's like 100 different roles, I'll just say, probably, on a team, so depending on the size. But AAA, there's like 100 different roles.
Brilliant. Laura, anything to add to that one?
I completely agree. Even just within Engine, we have lots of little sub-departments. We have like rendering, there's Engine itself. We have developer experience that develop and maintain in-house tools that we make, and we all use different languages, infrastructure. We deal with the farm health, and that's just in one department. That's not even gameplay.
Great, awesome. Brenda, have you got anything to add to that one?
If I can get this, there we are. I would, or there I am. It's not just me, it's this button. You know what I would add? Like, if you're curious about what roles are in games, look at the credits of your favorite game, because all the jobs are listed there. And I think the roles that, like, if I were brand new to the industry, or somebody who works in a related field, so you do art, but you're not necessarily doing art for games, or code, but not for code for games. The easiest places to get in are typically UI programmers. The UI programmers or props. If you're art side, doing props. I'm trying to think. Writers, I think what you did getting in as an intern, the amount of interns that we've brought in and have kept, it is actually, it's quite a few. So I would try, if you can get an internship, like we do internships every single year for underrepresented folks in the industry. So, people who are neurodivergent, people who come from poor backgrounds, people who in some way, shape, or form didn't ride the privilege train. And so, we've hired, I think, everybody who came in through that. So, that if you can get an internship, man, that's the best way. So, prove why they need to keep you.
Again, I can't even imagine saying it better than that. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is the bit where I can shine, folks. I'm not going to lie. The other bits I'm going to struggle, but this bit I'm all right. In terms of pathways, in terms of skills, how do we get into game development in some way, shape, or form? Well, it's the games industry, in general. It can start earlier than you expect. I speak to kids when we've had people pop up to our stall today who are 10, 11, 12, 13. I want to be a game developer. What do I do now? Or mums and dads are asking, what do we do now? How do we get there? The first thing I'm always going to tell them is, at school, get good at maths. Allow yourself to be good at mathematics. Mathematics is just going to build that logic. It's going to allow it, and it's going to translate really easily into some of the stuff that you're going to do when you become a programmer. Or anything, really. Additionally, on that same sort of line, I always say English as well. Your written work, your vocal work, things like that, always so important to be able to communicate. And then kids these days are doing more computing than we did when I was a kid, I can tell you that much. So much more. I was sat at home making batch files with my dad, and then we went to school and it was like, write the ABC. Oh, brilliant. So now we're doing a lot more of like Scratch and sort of simpler programming right the way from school age. There's no harm in getting creative, doing art and design, putting creativity into your writing and doing creative English. And then sciences. I always will be an exponent of sciences, especially physics in terms of what we do here, which is taught at schools and high schools and things like that. When folks move on, they might move into a college, or like we from Blackpool and Fire College, we're an FEHE college, so we have people from the age of 16 right the way to 60. In fact, I can't even say that anymore, it's 84 now, I've got to say 84. So at college, you've got GCSEs, you've got A-levels, T-levels, B-Techs, all these different things you can get into. Consider stuff like computer science, software engineering, game design and development, applied maths, physics. Even nowadays, we're starting to get newer programs in stuff like esports and things like that. Go and explore them, find out what your next step might be in that sort of sense. In terms of the way that college level works, when we move into university level, which again we also do at Blackpool Fire College, I told you there's a bit of propaganda, we also do degree stuff in software engineering, game development, computer science, digital production, interactive narratives, things like that. And again, that's not just at BNFC, that's at universities all over the country, all over the world. So that skill set can start really, really young and move your way through. And if you feel like, oh, well, I've missed school and I missed college, there's no harm in going back to your local FEHE college and asking that question. We get folks in every single year who think, oh, well, I'm too old. I've done this before, I'm not ready for it, or whatever. Come and have a conversation with your local FEHE college. We'll help you, we'll support you and get you in the industry you want to get into. So in terms of like particular knowledge-based skills, educational skills, is there anything on there, Lorna, that I might have missed in any way, shape, or form you're thinking of?
Your point about you can do it at any age. I dropped out of college when I was 18 to become a professional wrestler. Spoiler alert, I did not become a professional wrestler. I did lots of other jobs in between. I lived in Dubai, I was a flight attendant, I went all over, and then at 26 I was like, yeah, I like games, I can be a programmer. They told me to learn C++, so I did, and I went and did the course, and 3 years later I managed to land an internship. So yeah, you can do it at any age, it doesn't matter, you don't have to be a programmer. I dabbled in HTML in '98, I think that was it. And
Brilliant. And again, see, people listen to me, get real good jobs, I promise. Come to Blackpool Fire College. Of course you can, Brendan, yeah?
So one of the other hats, see I got the mic right this time, one of the other hats that I wore, I taught for 10 years at the graduate level, game design. And I will say, like, there's several different things. I've also done a lot of study about games and who tends to go into games. And a lot of times if we go back to the second level, early second level, young women will get, oh no, maths isn't something that you would want to do and push here, IT is for boys. And that's a lie, just for starters. A woman invented programming, a woman invented assembly language, a woman invented the first compiler. Try making anything without those. So I think it's really important also that we don't put a tremendous emphasis on maths or physics. I've been a game designer now for 30, 40 years. I'm still only 29. I've somehow come back from the grave. Anyway, so I've been a game designer for a long time, and I was really good at maths, but I rarely use it for what I do. I mean, spreadsheets do a lot of the hard lifting. If you want to be a graphics programmer, you got to be good at maths. But I want to make sure that people don't think that physics, I didn't like physics. I'll never like physics. I like all the weird physics shit, like, can you believe that when you do this, that happens? But I didn't need that for what I do. So if you're thinking that these certain courses or these certain subjects might not be for you, then don't worry about it. There's a place for you in games. I was good at maths. I don't use it all that much. I'm a whiz at spreadsheets, though. So I think that's good to emphasize. Also, one other thing I'd like to emphasize, if you want to get into games, go home and start now. Go home and start now. Your portfolio, you do not, it's like some people do really well with formalized learning. You barely made it through high school. And I would even say that some of the best actually I would say all of the best programmers I know barely made it through high school. One, this is public, I'm not spilling tea here. John Carmack, which some of you may know, he's an okay, he's a brilliant program, probably the best one that has ever existed. John Carmack spent how long in juvie? Juvenile detention?
I think it was a year.
A year. So, like, man,
Yeah.
there's a place for all of us.
Yeah, you can just learn at home if you feel like formalized education isn't yours. But one of the things that's really useful about going and learning computer science is that you learn a lot of patterns, design patterns and programming that when you get on a team helps you communicate with others a lot faster than having to explain the concept of a certain type of programming methodology. You can just say, this is the pattern, and everyone knows what you're talking about, so it's kind of a shorthand. There's a lot of algorithms you use that mean that when you're going to implement something, you kind of already know the right approach. So you do get a lot of really great information from a university that helps you make the right decisions when you start actually going into a career. But the funny thing is that when you actually graduate after 4 years and you are a programmer and you get in there to do game dev, you find out that you barely know enough to talk to a game team. You can now talk to them and you can now actually start learning. Like, you have to learn all this stuff to even be able to get to the point where you can learn the rest. And a lot of people say that once they get on a game team, the first several months are more than the 4 years that they spent. It's like it's applied, and schools can only teach a certain amount of knowledge that they're allowed to teach. Like, the bigger the university, the harder it is to move forward. Because this industry moves so fast, technology changes constantly on a daily basis, and universities don't change that fast. The thing is, they get you to a point where you can actually learn the rest of that very quickly. It's like it's almost like in any domain. There's work going on at the bleeding edge. In quantum mechanics, there's a lot of work going on there. You have to graduate college at a certain point to be able to even reach the edge. But you won't really reach it. It'll take you years to get to the point where you can even get to the edge if you don't actually get an accelerated learning.
One thing, sorry, I forgot, I got carried away on some other random tangent. One thing that, as somebody who's taught college for 10 years, the students who show up with coding knowledge will far exceed. And this is regardless of discipline. If you're coming into writing, but you also know how to code, which means you can script stuff, any students that I've ever had that were exceptional, all of them came in with some degree of programming knowledge, all self-taught, but it was really getting into college, getting that refined. You can see it makes a massive difference.
Everyone on our narrative team scripts. Like, you don't just get to write dialogue and come up with stories, you actually make it happen in the game. And we provide lots of tools for them to actually implement it and change the way that the game flows. The programmers make these tools, so the programmers aren't actually having to make missions happen. They provide all the tools for the narrative team to write that in the engine. So you actually, even though you're a writer and you have you've learned all of this skill in writing, when you get on a game team, you actually learn even more. You learn how to script and make it happen. So it goes even deeper than that.
Absolutely. And again, it's about the idea of not just hyper-specializing. You will eventually specialize when you get out into the industry, potentially, to go and get something. It's about that underlying knowledge that, sort of comes through. And I completely agree with the, folks who've gone out and done something on their own, learned a bit of Unity or Unreal or some scripting language or coding language. Those people who start our foundation degrees and our degrees, they excel. They're the ones that are going to get those opportunities of even bigger jobs at the end because they've got a wider portfolio, they've done more of it. And they're able to sort of show that off. Now, I'm going to say, speaking of which, and hopefully the next slide is not about portfolios, we'll see. Oh, it's transferable skills next, isn't it? Darn it. I was close. So again, there are other skills to consider, and I think we've segued into here anyway. So in terms of skills beyond the classroom, and I think that's kind of been a little bit of what we've talked about already, but just sort of formalise it a little bit. We talk about communication, we talk about team working, problem solving, being flexible. All the sort of, dare I say, obvious interpersonal skills, transferable skills, soft skills, however you term them, each of which is really important. If you can't communicate something to a team of people, you're going to struggle. So it's about how you understand communication. Some people might be more and less blunt with each other. That might be how things get done, things don't get done. But it's about how we can use words, writing, things like that to communicate. Team working is something that I try and instill in my students every single year. At the start of the year, I get things thrown at me when I put people into groups. I've got 2 of them in the front row, or they've already done it. You put me through, I don't want to be in this group. I don't like these people. This isn't my group. Right, well, this is real life. Get over it. Let's work it out. And after 6-7 weeks, they're like a close-knit bond, and they now think like each other, and they can work things out, and they build solutions to problems you weren't expecting. Teamwork's really, really important. Obviously, problem solving, which I was really happy I got a Rubik's Cube. You see, that's real cute. And then being adaptable. You know, things do change. You know, crikey, the amount of change that we had to deal with on a regular basis, even at a college level. Crikey, Unreal updated recently. That was fun. Thanks, Unreal, for letting me know that one was coming. So I've not had to relearn Unreal, but I've had to relearn parts of the pipeline. I've had to relearn how we do certain things. That's fine. But luckily, I've got a Lorna who comes and teaches for me. Don't tell anyone. So in terms of sort of more interpersonal skills, soft skills, Brenda, which ones do you think are maybe that I've not spoken about that are really, really important?
I would say your comfort speaking to other people, your ability to talk about yourself. And if you're right, if you submit a CV and you're looking to be a writer and there's a single grammatical error in it, I will see it and I will not accept your CV. If you're willing to, if that is the attention you put into representing yourself, there's not a good way to do it. Also, please don't use ChatGPT to write your cover letters. I can see them a mile away. ChatGPT loves adjectives and adverbs, actually. So I think people who come in and they're able to sell themselves. You know, and I would say, like, we live in Ireland, and I'm American, as you probably guessed. I'm an American from New York, which means I don't even know that it's confidence. It's just it's the package we get handed at birth, right? But I go into a job and I know I'm going to get it. And I don't even care who I'm interviewing against. I know I'm going to get it. I won't apply for something I don't feel that I'm qualified for. But showing that confidence without showing arrogance, like I may have just done, that's important. I would say one other thing that's critical. There's a load of people in the industry who are qualified, or a load of people wanting to get into the industry who are super qualified. But we are not really hiring you as much as we're protecting the 70 people on our team. We want to make sure that you are a very good culture fit. And that you are, like, our company, we rarely, we have very low turnover. Like, I think the programming team in 10 years has had 2 people leave. And so it's because we want to make sure that people feel good working there, they feel comfortable working there, they feel they can do their best work there. Nobody raises their voice except for him when he's death matching, just to be very clear. But I would say, be somebody people want to work with and feel, I was saying about Ireland is, as an American, we tend to overstate everything. This is probably not a surprise to anybody in this room. But I find people, especially in Ireland, tend to understate who or what they are. And if it's just your CD and it doesn't have a New York accent on it, think about how you present yourself and, be confident in what you've done. I also sometimes see CVs come in saying, probably really not qualified to do this, or don't shoot yourself in the foot. Leave that up to the people looking at your CV.
Also, one of the other things that's important, and this is after making games for a really long time, it's important that when you're working with other people that you have respect for everybody, which means that people, like she said, they're not raising their voice, they're not throwing chairs, they're not making fun sarcastically, there's no passive aggressiveness. It's just everyone's professional. It's an adult studio. Everybody knows how to resolve differences. They don't get heated. You just try and understand the other person's viewpoint. And there's always going to be a decider. So whether your viewpoint is valid or not, the decider is the person who says, this is how we're going to do it. Thanks for your input. This is how we need to do this. But yeah, everybody treating each other well is really critical to people wanting to stay at your studio and people treating each other respectfully. The other thing that's a real big part of the industry is everyone worrying about crunch time. And in our studio, we don't do crunch time. If it's 6 o'clock, you need to go home and don't work on the weekends. And if that means that we can't make the rest of the game, we're in a process of continual scope and rescoping on a daily basis. So if things are falling behind, we figure out how to get it done or push it off or get rid of it. We do not decide that you're going to work longer to make it in the game. That's not why we're making games, to work super long hours. You know, like I did that at the very beginning because I loved it. I wanted to do it. No one ever told me to do it. But like when you are being made to do it, then it's crunch mode. So it's important that people, like even we have enthusiastic people that would not stop working. And we have to tell them to stop because I know you like what you're doing. Just like come back tomorrow, you know, when work stops, stop right now. And it's great, you know, that's how you keep people energized. They're not getting burned out. You know, you're not burning them out, making them work too hard. So no crunch mode, the game quality has to be the highest. So it means that you put less things in the game, just higher quality. And you figure out how to get there. That's a really good team of producers helps make those decisions as well. And then you are not burning people out. You're making the highest quality thing you can. You try and put a lot of stuff in there. Your game, when it comes out, is different than when you first thought what that game was going to be. Like that's always what it's like. But you're always making the best decision for the game every day. And the reason why people are still making games, why people would make them as long as we've been making them is because every day should be a really great day in game dev. It's not the day that you launch is not the important day. Every day is important. And getting to that point is just one of those days. And then there's post-launch. There's stuff to do after launch, so it just keeps on going. So you have to treat it that way. It's a thing you do every day. Make it fun, be respectful, have fun, learn stuff all the time, be excited about it. And having a team with a lot of different kinds of people on it. Everybody's hanging out. They have social channels, virtual pubs, or they just go out to the pub if they're in town together. But the people that work together actually like hanging out together because we try and match everybody's personality on the team.
Perfect. And again, the idea of we've had like confidence, which is brilliant. Respect given and received and all that sort of stuff. Lorna, anything to add to that?
Teamwork is extremely important. I'd like to point that one out again. I know programming is sort of seen as like a lone wolf, stereotypically, but being able to work within a team is so important. And I've been running the engineering internships at Rare for the past 3 years now. And this year we had 900 applications, and I looked through every single one. And one of the things that I do love seeing, like transferable skills, is customer service work. So if I've seen you've worked at Tesco, if you've worked at McDonald's, if you've interacted with a team, I know that you're going to have those transferable skills. And often when I talk to people at the college, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that was a soft skill that I can transfer into the games industry. And I'm like, absolutely it is.
Awesome, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a great point.
I love that. So we've got, on top of my brilliant ones, obviously, we had confidence, respect, and customer service, which, again, 3 to add to that one, indeed. Okay, so 2 things that I think are crucial, and I think have become more and more crucial the more I have interacted with industry people or different companies or even our alumni, is what's really important to get you there, what's really important to sort of get you actually into this industry in some way, shape or form. And the 2 words that always come up are portfolio and networking. And we're not saying it is who you know, it's how you get yourself out there. That's what's really important. So use events like this to talk to developers. Go off and show things off. Okay, it's not always free to do so, but there's ways of making it free. Additionally, again, big developers, small developers, it doesn't matter. We've got bods from Romero Games here. We've got people from Rare. There's about 10 different indie developers in the main hall, I think, as well. Go and say hello. Go and see what their journeys were. Ask them what they would do. Oh, I've got something to show you. How do I send it to you, etc., etc. That sort of stuff, really super important. Another one, the one that sort of comes up the most is portfolio. So in terms of a portfolio, what I mean is I'm talking about stuff like professional profile, showcasing of your projects, game jam submissions, code samples, technical work, depending on which area you want to get into, you want to focus particularly. We've got design documents, and then we've got artwork and narrative samples. John, have you got anything that you think you look at in a portfolio and go, that's what I'm looking for?
Well, Yeah, so having portfolios come in all different representations. Typically, if you do art, go to ArtStation. Like that's where people are very used to going there, or LV80 is another really good one. Put your stuff up there. That's where like people, it's like, I need an artist that can do this. And you can go on ArtStation and just start cruising through the, I don't know how many thousands of people are up there, but it's great because you can find them and you can contact them and send them mail directly. It's not like, okay, there's a maze of figuring out where this person is. When you're building a portfolio, having a web page that has videos and screenshots of your thing, you don't need to let people download your stuff. No one wants to do that anyway. They can see screenshots, you can describe it. Like, you know, one of the things that was mentioned is that level design is a massive field. It is very important. I mean, for level design, you have level designers that will come up with like the idea of what the level is supposed to be, and they're going to do what's called a white box of the level, which is basically just making it out of boxes of specific sizes that have been determined by the metrics of movement of your character. And then they build an entire white level, and things may not even move or anything in it. And then you have environmental artists come through and just replace those things with really great looking art. You have people who are lighting artists that just light everything. They put lights on everything. It's very complex lighting level, let me tell you. And then there's people who just do combat encounters, people that create the missions. There's people that like do everything. They create layers of data that let that game do what it's supposed to do. And level design is a massive field as well. But for all of these things,
So create a level.
yeah, create a level. That's one of the easiest things that you can do. It's a little more accessible than some of the other stuff that you like making great 3D art. If you want to make a level, you can go into Unreal and just start making levels. You can buy mesh kits, which is what you put in a level to make it look cool. You just buy those off the marketplace, Unreal Marketplace or Unity Marketplace, and then just put stuff together in the engine. It's really, really easy. And just doing that will get you very excited about game dev because you can actually just run it immediately. You can just like create a level in seconds and then start, like when you create a level in Unreal, it's just like, it's a level with stuff already in it. And you can basically start getting these meshes and start building a room, build a little house, and just run around it and just like, now you're like feeling like this is just the beginning. It's really exciting. And when you do make something that's really cool looking, then on a web page, you basically take different screenshots, you describe what it is, maybe a video of you playing through it. Do that for a bunch of different projects. And one of the best ways of making projects is game jams. Game jams, I love game jams. I do so many game jams. In fact, this giant game that I'm making is from a game jam. So just 5 of us worked for 5 days to make a demo, and that demo got picked up by a major publisher, and that's what we've been working on for years. And like game jams will teach you so much. And you gotta be really good to make something that people can actually play or do anything with. But like, if you do a game jam and you barely make anything, great, you just learn stuff. Do another game jam. And you don't need to do game jams when a certain game jam happens, like Global Game Jam. You can do it any weekend, right? And if you go to itch.io, it'll show you the game jams that are happening every day around the world. There are tons of game jams in all kinds of environments. So yeah, do game jams. They are the best thing ever.
I could not agree anymore. Again, the idea of game jams is not new either. It's something people have been doing for a long time. It's just got a name in the last sort of 10 years. Go and get involved and do them. There's no stopping. Again, you can hand in something that's a bit rubbish. It doesn't matter. You've got to get better for the next one. That's the best bit. Brenda, have you got anything to add to this?
One of the things to think about is, especially when students are graduating, like right now, you're probably aware that it's Armageddon level in the industry, right? That doesn't mean that, so there's been a lot of layoffs. That doesn't mean that people aren't hiring, right? You know, there are roles open, there are entry-level roles open. People can't staff an entire team with people with 20 years of experience. Well, they could, but they better earn a lot of money. And I think I review, until very recently, when we got like a full-time recruiter joined the team, I reviewed almost all the CVs. And I can tell you, here's exactly how it goes. I don't read your cover letter. I will read it, I will care later. Right? I don't read your cover letter, I'm looking at your skills. If you're an artist, I'm looking for ArtStation and I click it. And I would deeply encourage you, if you have 10 and you're like, I don't want to put just 5 things up in my portfolio. I need to have 10 things, so you've got 5 things and 5 things that are please do not include those. I would rather see one really good thing. We have in fact contacted someone based off one really good thing. So do not include the junk. If you are learning, for instance, let's just say you're learning how to, I don't know, you're learning something, whether it's like something in interactive narrative, post that, right? Show your game development work, because I will go to your site before I read your CV. I want to see, what I want to hire is somebody that obviously likes games. And this is kind of going back an earlier question, but like, if everybody likes games, I know y'all are competitive, right? And you need to think that you are going versus everybody else in the CV pile. Don't come out of school with just your games. Come out of school with game jam stuff. There was a student we had eons ago, and if he had to learn something, he would make a game to learn it. Like, he's just now getting to learn whatever. You know, he's learning pointers for the first time. Okay, well, he's going to make a game in which he shows this, and it said all this in his thing. So the result was that he's graduated from a master's course. You clicked into his webpage, and he had like 50 games on there, and he explained why he had created this, and that told me this is a person who is in love with games. This is a person who wants to do this more than anything else. So go at it, like, just be ferociously competitive. When I was teaching in college, I remember there were some students, so there was Will and Dave and Darren, and yet another Dave, and yeah, so there was, like, Ian, and those students were like, people go, well, yeah, but that's just Dave. Like, David is, like, yeah, of course he's going to get, but that's just Dave. In that whole class, it's probably just going to be Dave that gets in. So whoever the person that you're like, man, yeah, but they're a superstar. You need to beat that superstar. And so I think that's important, and show, like, whatever your excuse is whatever you're learning, use it as an excuse to make a game. I would also add, for those people who are thinking about, getting into narrative, there's funny enough, John's childhood best friend. He was a Hollywood writer. He really wanted to get into games. And he said, how can I do it? So he contacted me, and I said, well, make a game in Twine. And there's lots of Twine, Inkle, Fungus. There's a ton of different tools you can use to make a narrative game. He got a job working on Life is Strange and won a BAFTA. That's a true story. Kind of a ridiculous.
He wrote Life is Strange.
Yeah. So
the whole story.
Yeah. So
because he submitted a
Twine
Twine example for a CV.
Yeah. He had writing talent as well. So there's just, whatever you're doing, find lots of ways to show your work.
Perfect. And again, in fact, I was talking with students at further education, there were 18 saying, oh, I want to be a game writer. And I said, use Twine, so I feel very vindicated today. That's a good start. I like that one, that's brilliant.
I would use ink now.
Yeah.
Would you think now? Okay, I'm going to go and do some more research. Look, oh, it's the new Twine. Feeling that one all day. Lorna, anything to add to the portfolio element?
Yeah, so I know when I'm looking through portfolios, and again, I see them when they've got great games on them. When I click on them, and there's just a picture and a name, maybe a brief description, I'm like, great, I'm going to need a little bit more than that. I love seeing reflections on your portfolio. If you can tell me why you did something, why you didn't like it, what you thought went wrong with it, how you would fix it in the future, maybe you'll come back to it. That shows me that you probably actually did make the game, as I've seen some of that going on lately, and you can talk about it.
Yeah, I think the idea of authenticity in a portfolio is quite important, especially with ChatGPT, he says, with AI art behind it. That's my fault, by the way. Right, so yeah, authenticity, really, really, really important. Okay, so this is just like, we've kind of covered a lot of this, but this is just some general advice for anyone who's an aspiring game developer. Obviously, we talked about building portfolios, we've talked about education, and again, education, when I say education, obviously I mean, further education, higher education, yada, yada, yada. But I also mean, go out there and learn stuff. There's no harm in watching a YouTube video that taught you something. The way that I learned Unreal, I didn't have someone who could teach me how Unreal worked at the time, and we wanted to deliver it. So I was like, right, I'm going to watch YouTube videos. I'm going to go and watch TED Talks about it. I watched, Linda, before it was LinkedIn Learning. I went and did courses. I've got an account on learn.unreal.com. I still have that now, even though I'm a teacher and I'm supposed to be good at it. I learn new stuff every single year, just by constantly being educated. There's lots of different ways to consider that education. Again, we said get involved in game jams and gain some work experience. Work experience in the gaming industry can be very difficult to get hold of. But this is what I mean, come here, ask people the right questions. Very shortly, by the way, we'll ask for some questions when we can start this. You know, it's get out there, put yourself out there and do that sort of stuff. So one massive piece of advice that you'd give to someone coming into this industry, I'm going to start with Lorna. What would that, do you want me to not start with you? Lorna's like, go away, please. I'll come back to you. Brenda.
Oh, God.
What's the one like punchiest piece of advice you give to someone trying to get into this industry, who's perhaps not started yet?
I would say, all right, sorry, you caught me off guard there. No, it's okay, I've got it now. I'm assuming again that everybody in the audience plays games, and you've clearly died in a game before, especially in some of your games. So if that's the case, you look at your career and look at getting into the game industry, pretty similar, you know, just load your save and try again, load your save, try again, get better, level up, load your save, try again. Like, you know, when we got into the industry, it was, I mean, it was kind of barely an industry back in the early 80s, but so now, you know, it takes more. We've had, you know, people who are experienced, but from other areas. Like, we had an educator who taught Unity and was co-located with our team for a while just to get an idea of what development is. I would say, you know, so I think just be competitive, keep trying. Like, if it's what you want, you'll get in. Like, lots of people, I know loads of people actually, who have been like, well, that's great, but I also need to eat. So they'll go, you know, they'll do something else, but they're making games on the weekend. And there's lots of active game communities that start that way. So yeah, just keep trying.
I think the idea of someone saying, I've not got time, is a really interesting thing. You can make a half an hour a day, you know what I mean? Just spend half an hour a day doing something. You'll learn skills that way. I mean, crikey, there's a thing called Duolingo where you can learn languages in 10 minutes a day. So if you've got that, do that in C, do that in writing, do that with ink, not twine. You know, do that however it is that you want to sort of get into it. I love that. I like the idea of me going through E1M1 and just dying constantly and going, oh, gotta get better, nope, dodge that one. It's the exact same thing in what you want to do here as well. Awesome. Do I dare with Lorna? Go for it.
Yeah, I think mine's going to be just do it. Don't be afraid of failing, and don't think you have to know everything to start. Just find a tutorial on YouTube, just start, mess around, just start doing it.
Brilliant. And John?
Yeah, when you're starting to make your first game, it needs to be Pong. It needs to be so simple, because that is, just to achieve that is actually a lot of work when you don't know anything about making games. It might seem simple, but when you actually get down to doing it, you will be hitting walls constantly and trying to climb over those walls by learning what it is that you need to learn, because you're inside someone else's engine, or you're trying to write your own engine, or whatever you're doing is continuous learning of brand new stuff. So that's the important part on your earliest games, is just learning. Do not worry about the game itself, right? The game needs to be really small. You're just learning how to make that thing work. And then you make another very small game. Do not start making Final Fantasy VII. Do not. That's not going to happen, right? Nobody even wants to see that. If you try and submit a CV that you just made Final Fantasy VII, they'll throw it away. It's not going to happen. It has to be small stuff. Like, those are your goals. And everybody in the industry is so different than out of the industry. So everyone in the industry knows how hard it is to make a game. And they know that all these small steps, they all add up to getting, like Doom was my 90th game. I made 90 games for Doom. And that is a lot of little steps, a lot of learning another little thing, and then incorporating those new things in the next game and making it maybe a little bit bigger or just the same size but different. But I made all my earliest games were just a ton of small things just to get better at a new game mechanic, or maybe a new language, or a new optimization, or a graphical trick or something. So yeah, focus on the learning part make a game, make a really small game, but your focus should be on getting good doing it. And that's how you find success and want to keep doing it, is because you figured out something new and you finish that little game. You define your game, every little game, define how you're done with it, get really good at closing the game, get good at finishing it. Don't like start it and then like abandon it and then start another thing. You need to know how to finish a game. And the smaller it is, the harder you see that 10%, that last 10% is. So getting to 90 is easy. It's that last 10% that actually takes time. So do that. Make small stuff. You're learning a ton, even making a little adventure. Try to make an adventure game like the ones in the early 90s or late 80s. Those things are hard to make. But they're really fun to make too. So yeah, do that. If you like, I doing game jams. One of the game jams I did in 2017 was to make a little adventure game without a character on the screen. So it's kind of like a first person, but not in that viewpoint. Yeah. We did a 10-hour game jam, and you can see that game. I put it up for download. It's on 4 platforms. Did it in 10 hours. Just me and a programmer at our company, and we just did it at a place in Galway because they have Galway game jams. And so we did it, and it's called July 4th, 1976. If you go to playbarf.com, you'll find this game. You can find it, Android, iOS, Windows, and Mac. And if you just want to see this thing, it took us 10 hours. You can just see, this is what game jam games are. That's just the level that they are. So, yeah, and it was really fun. And it was like 10 hours going as fast as we could. There was no time to eat. It was all making this thing. It was really, really fun. Game jams are just amazing. But check that out if you would just want to see, 10 hours and put it up on the internet. It's on the iOS App Store and everything.
Perfect. And again, I think that sort of, the different stuff we've come up with here is all good advice. My advice as well is play video games. Like, you've got to play video games. You have to. You have to understand what your audience might look like, what different games are doing now, what you would do to a video game. One of my favourite lessons to teach is take a video game, what do you change to make it a completely different video game that still people will want to play, in some way, shape, or form, or make it a more, multifaceted thing. Okay, so with that then, I think we're sort of somewhere near. Right, perfect. So first things first, folks, we've got our get in touch with us. All of our stuff is up on the screen behind me. I should probably be better at this, being a teacher, but I know they said gooder then. No one knows that, right? So what we've got about 10 minutes or so for a little bit of Q&A. If anyone's got any questions, we'll run around with a microphone. Oh, even better. We'll run around with a microphone if you've got any questions, and then after that, like I say, we can always talk about any other questions you might have that you're not really wanting to ask questions about right here. We're at the stand tomorrow, Blackpool and the Fire College stand in the Traders Hall, and John and Brenda are both at their stand tomorrow in the Traders Hall. There might be about 15 minutes before we get back, but don't count on it, all right? Okay, so we've got our first question.
Hi, I anticipate that most people don't live anywhere near Blackpool and Fire College. So if we were going to enrol in a course somewhere else, how do we know what do we need to look for to know that we're going to get the educational standards that we're going to need to develop games?
I think that's a brilliant question. And again, I would say that Blackpool's not far enough for anyone. No, kidding. So what we're looking for, industry links. That's what I'd want to see. I'd want to see who do they go and partner with, who do they talk to, who do they have in as guest speakers and guest lecturers. When we're writing, especially in higher education, which is like degree level stuff, I want to see who was linked to it. What were the names on there? With some of our degrees we've had Sony, we've had Splash Damage, we've had a lot of other ones in the past. We're hoping to have Romero games and Rare in the future. Lots of different things. If you start to find places, and I will stress this, and I know it's on YouTube and all that stuff, there are some bloody fantastic courses out there that are not at Blackpool and Fire College. I'm not telling you where they are, right? But there are some really, really, really good ones out there. It means that you've got to go and do your research. Another thing that I'd say is, if you can, if it's possible, visit these places. Have a look around. Talk to the staff. Are the staff personable? Are the staff what you're expecting? Do they know what they're talking about? What's their equipment like? Are you going to have a good time? Obviously, I can say that knowing full well that we have been in a place in the past where we didn't really have the equipment. You know, and now we're starting to have more and more of that, as are some other FEHE colleges, but also universities across the UK, really. But yeah, absolutely, partnerships with industry is number one for me, absolutely. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks so much for your question, by the way. Does that answer your question? Then? Anybody else got any more questions for us? It doesn't have to be just to me, I promise. Perfect. We've got them running around, this is brilliant. Can you come and do my lesson afterwards as well? It'd be great.
Hi there. If you were going to give advice to a 9-year-old or a younger kid who wants to get into developing games, specifically programming games, would you recommend they sort of start getting C++ books or do some Game Maker or some simpler language?
Scratch. Yeah, start with Scratch. No one needs to learn C++ until they're like in college, probably. But
This is a little bit of tea. John started both of his daughters on what language?
C. Yeah, but Scratch wasn't out then. So Scratch is great. There's also some really great things that you can subscribe by mail, and they will send you kits. And these little kits will let you, will let them like create games. I think even on an iPad, and it'll run on an iPad or a tablet, an Android, because it's all reachable through the web, so it doesn't matter what the device is. But it's really cool that you can, like, kids can program something really simple. At the very beginning, it's just like logic, how logic works, and then when they figure that out, they can eventually get to a language like, say, Lua, which is a C-based language, but it's very simple. Very, very simple. Hundreds of games have been published in Lua. And then eventually move up to C and then C++. Those languages, it's all about dealing with memory, which you don't need to think about when you're in learning mode with scripting and stuff. It's like the next level of learning is dealing with pointers and memory and that kind of stuff.
I'd add to that. So one, especially if it's, there's like two things I think regardless of age. If you're looking to become a writer, for instance, you need to study the classics, you need to study the great authors. So even with kids or people who are, actually anybody, study great games and study them as a text. Why is that game great? Like, we would have conversations with our kids when they would say, oh my God, this is what's great about it? What is fun about it? And talk to them like we would talk to other game developers. Also, there's a book I wrote, but you can find it for free as a PDF online, so this isn't a sales pitch. It's called Challenges for Game Designers, and you don't even need a computer for this. It's really just about design thinking, and there's probably 300 different challenges in the book, everything from this is easy to this is ridiculously hard, just to get your brain thinking along those ways. So with our kids, some of their earliest games were board games. And that still teaches design thinking.
Also, on our website, Romero.com, we do have challenges for game design, for game designers, but we also have some other books that she's written. She wrote a book on game balance of 600 pages, because like every different kind of game needs balance. This is for every single kind of game.
That's math. If you really love math, that's where to find the math.
There has not been another game balance book written. It's pretty great. There's also Breaking Into the Industry, Breaking Into the Game Industry.
This is my #1 fan and president of my fan club. But anyway, you can find that book for free. I would rather people learn to design, right? So you can just Google challenges for game designers.pdf. You'll find it.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you. We've got probably time for another question if you fancy it.
Would you say there are pros and cons to working with an indie studio versus a live studio?
Is it working for one?
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, I'm the least able to answer this question, so I'll pass that one on. Lorna, you work for Rare, it's a fairly big one.
Yeah, I think it's classed as AAA. I know the initiative in LA call themselves Quadruple A, which is quite funny. I'd say I don't know about indie development, but I know just within our company, it's very split up, so you can go very niche. You're not really going to work on all areas of the game. You're going to be in certain departments, and if that suits you, like I knew I wanted to be engine. I don't particularly like doing gameplay programming. I find it quite tedious. I prefer doing crash dumps, looking at stuff in assembly. I want to make the game engine go faster. I like big number go small. That's what I like to do. So AAA works out quite well for me.
Yeah, so I've been an indie developer pretty much my whole career. No matter how big the company is, well, unless you're invested in from investors or you're owned by another big company, you're probably an indie if you own your own studio. In an indie company, a lot of times you have to do a lot of jobs because you have way less people making the game. So typically people get to touch a lot of the game, which is super fulfilling. It's really, really fun. Like we were making a game called Empire of Sin, and I did production and I did all the audio in that game, and it was really fun to do that. But like with indie games, like Gunman Taco Truck, there's like 3 of us making that game, or 4 of us, something like that. That was Donovan, our son, who was 9 years old, came up with the game idea, and we thought it was amazing, so we made this game. And it was a very small team, but like each of us had so many different jobs, but it was like, it's really fun doing that. When you get into a really big AAA company, you get to do a single thing, and you have to do it really, really good. So, and that's great, you know, you can say, yeah, I worked on that level, you know, in the game. That was my level, I own that, out of all of these things in the game. But like, you know, and that's like to learn how to do it at a really high quality. It's just really good to know that if you go back to indie, you can bring all the stuff that you learned from AAA back. And AAA games, they typically cost $75 million or more to make.
Okay. Does that answer your question? You happy with that?
I could add something to that.
Of course, yeah, please do.
So I think sometimes when people say indie, they mean smaller companies versus like more established AAA, which is typically a big company. And I really think it depends on what you're looking for in your life. Like small startups, indie teams, like our Romero Games is now, we're 10 years in Ireland. So we're at the point where we're able to add more benefits. Everybody who's on the team owns part of the company. And so, that's stuff huh? Menopause policy. You can have days off for menopause. Why? Because I said so. I was just like, I've never seen it, so I made it. Anyway, thank you. We have a lot of good benefits. What am I doing? Don't encourage me. Anyway, so I think it's like if you're looking for something like startups, you learn so much because there's few people there and there's all kinds of stuff happening. Where we're at now, it's 10 years, it's pretty stable. I feel like I just jinxed it now. It depends on what you're looking for. I would say, I wish I'd had this advice. There's a game designer, his name's Manveer Air, and he also a level designer. And what he would look for is, what's your last score? So he wants to see what is your last games. Yeah, were your last games hitting 60, 70? So he would only work for an 80 plus or over studio. And man, that's, stick with the winners because that's where you learn a ton, So it just really depends on what you're looking for. And ask people too, do they like the studio? Do people stick around the studio? I think the fact that we have nearly no turnover on our programming team is one of the biggest attractions for the programming team.
Totally. Okay, thank you so much for all of your questions. Thank you for listening. We have been Blackpool and Faculty, or I have been Blackpool and Faculty, I should say. So again, if you wanted to talk to us about any of our courses, say come and talk to us at our booth. Tomorrow we'll have the boys and girls there to take any questions that you've got. And feel free, as we're wandering out and wandering off, just ask us any questions you've got, no problem whatsoever. Thank you so much, Lorna, for being here. And thank you so much, Brenda and John. Thank you, everyone. It's been a wonderful fun. I'll see you soon.
One more time, please, for our incredible Breaking Into the Games Industry Expert panel! And don't forget, folks, that we've got more incredible interviews tomorrow at 12 o'clock. We're going to be with Bullfrog Lionhead and Two Point Studio legend, Mr. Gary Carr, will be here live. Then at 2 o'clock tomorrow, we have Warren Davis, creator of Cuboids. What an incredible day.